of my channels right now, and then we'll just get kicking here. But there's some things I want to discuss with you guys. There's so much I wanted to share in this podcast episode. Sorry, there's so much I wanted to share, but I had to limit it to what I think was, I guess, most important at this time. I think we should look at, and how what things that are transpiring in our nation in different states, like New York and Virginia and New Jersey, to be exact. So we're gonna just dive into, first of all, this government shutdown. So the Democrats are floating a keep the lights on type deal. That's what we're seeing from them. And this is basically like a Christmas stocking of a policy ask, and extending the Obamacare tax credits and sprinkling in add-ons, while the Republicans rightly are saying fund the government first, then we can talk about policy second, which I think that is definitely what the approach that we need to take, because we're talking about American lives. We're talking about people that actually depend on the government for necessities like food, so this is the approach we should take, and I think the Republican Party not budging on this is really kind of the stance that they have to take right now, unless we want to put this whole bill back through the entire process. So I'm with the common sense approach. I mean, pass a clean bridge that pays the bills, and then we can discuss the policy in the daylight. The idea that we should tie fundamental operations of the government to side deals is how you get month-long shutdowns that hurt families and small businesses. The MAGA difference is steward taxpayer money like it matters. Stop pretending we can subsidize the whole world while our own borders, streets, and schools are in crisis, and stop using shutdowns as leverage from unrelated agenda items. Okay, we've had footage of Chuck Schumer saying that he would never do this. This was idiotic, but that was when the shoe was on the opposite foot. And so now, though, since it benefits him and it benefits the Democrat Party, they're taking this approach. They're doing the opposite of what they say, which kind of constitutes to having really no values, no actual thing to stand on, or actually no stances that you're willing to put everything on. It's just mainly, let's just go with what actually keeps us in power. And I think this is the reason why they really want to go after Donald Trump. I don't think it's necessarily only just about his policy and all these different things. It's the fact that they are losing power. And so, and then you give rise to this. So and I love what Speaker Mike Johnson said, that that's not governance, that's hostage taking. And when the media were asking either Speaker Mike Johnson or Vice President J.D. Vance about, negotiating, since Trump is such a great negotiator, why can't he negotiate this? And then they had to break down what negotiation actually is. And I love that, because it gives language, it gives words to what's actually taking place. Because if you listen to the media, they will spin that. They'll make it seem like, oh, Trump is not willing to work with the Democrat Party, and maybe there's some truth to that, okay? Because the stuff that they say are outlandish, and Trump has an agenda, he has a platform he ran on, and if it's not consistent with that, this man is in 2.0 right now. He is running, and he's not stopping. Okay, he ran on his promises, and he's keeping it, and he's full throttle right now. But when you demand something in exchange for then to give somebody else something, that's not negotiating at all. So I love that they put that into actual language for the American people of what it actually is. So that's awesome. So now we're in this place now where we're still in the longest government shutdown that we've ever had in our nation's history. And in the midst of all of that, we have these elections, we have all these things taking place in other states. And I want to get to this because I feel like I want to get to a place during this podcast where we break down the different parties. And I've been doing some research on the history of these parties. No, they're not necessarily in the Constitution. I'm going to hit on that. But they are, this is what we have right now. And it's about, like I mentioned before, power. And I want to break down the difference between the formulas that the Democrat Party, the Republican Party has used. When we're going to break down their old, their new, etc. So New York City, Mamdani wins. New York City loses. Okay. New York City just elected Zohran Mamdani as mayor, an open Democrat socialist, over Andrew Cuomo running as an independent and Republican Curtis Sliwa. Now, the final scoreboard, Mamdani roughly, we got an image of Mamdani we can put up, 48%. Cuomo, 31%, Sliwa, 18%. And I've heard some people say that if Sliwa were to drop out, then Cuomo could assume his votes. And here's the thing, even if every single Sliwa voter magically transferred to Cuomo, which never happens in real life, you'd be looking at about 49%. He'd still be behind Mamdani. So Sliwa dropping out wouldn't have saved Cuomo at all. So the city wanted Mamdani's platform, unfortunately. And I try to process, why Americans would want this type of vote. And I thought maybe something happened like we saw with the city council in Michigan, I believe it was, where we had a city councilman who was a Muslim who was basically putting ballots into the polling, into the polls. And he was basically falsifying his votes. He was trying to make himself look like he had all of these votes when he really didn't, and he was actually caught on camera. So I thought maybe, the reason why Trump doesn't want this mail-in voting stuff, because you can put fraud in there. But I thought maybe something like that happened in New York, since we don't have a full law yet on, we just have voter ID, right? But we don't have the other things that Trump's trying to implement to make sure that our elections are safer. So I'm like, maybe that could have happened. I don't know. If it did, mainstream media wouldn't talk about it. But I'm trying to think through why these people would want Mamdani, and the only thing I can think of is just, to put this kind of bluntly, but not at all sarcastically or degrading of anyone, but it seems like it would have to be the ignorance of the people to think that a platform in which he ran on, which basically put more government control in New York City, would work for New York City and take them out of the current struggle that they're in. And I get it. Like, you have all of these voices saying, that Mamdani's not good, but then Mamdani is the only one who seems to have a different plan from what New Yorkers have seen, and that might be the reason. He's younger, etc. And that's why I want to break down our parties when we get later on in this podcast. I'm going to dive a little bit more into that on even why Trump got elected. So when we look at Mamdani, he's talking about this plan he has, and he can speak very well. He's eloquent. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. But if we looked over the history of socialism and then it breeding communism to dictatorship, it doesn't work. It ends up, destroying an economy, and especially for the West, it's not going to work. This nation has thrived off of capitalism, off of the ability to build, to become something, to not necessarily depend on the government, though we do have those systems in play when it's needed. That's a limited government. You're talking about government run on all these different things that I guess have failed New Yorkers. But the thing is that it sounds good on paper, but if you're ignorant, it sounds great. Like, I get all these freebies. That's all you hear, right? But you don't understand the impact that makes on the whole of the state and the city. Like, it's not just about you. And I think that's also where, as we as citizens may fall short too, is that we think individually when we should be thinking as a nation. And just understanding that as a nation, if the word of God says that you pray for your leaders, if they prosper, you prosper. So that tells me that I can't just pray for me to be okay, right? I understand that I'm a part of something that's bigger than me. And so my voice or my vote or whatever policy they put in place is going to affect not just one individual person, it's going to affect us all. And so now we have Mamdani elected as mayor, and he's making these promises, and he's speaking like he's not just the mayor. He's speaking like he's like low-key president. I'm not listening to his speeches. But what's on his actual platform? Because this, I think, is important. I'm going to go into this a little bit more so we understand exactly what this dude is running on and what he plans to implement. A $30 citywide minimum wage, rent freeze, universal childcare, free bus service, higher taxes on the ultra wealthy. I'm going to stop right there. There's more. But I just want to say this. I was talking with my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. We were talking about different apartments around our area and how certain people treat these apartment complexes that they're living in. And I, for one, get upset when I look at the fact that some of these new apartment complexes, they're beautifully made. But then when you go in and you try to enjoy them, like I have a friend at one of these apartment complexes, and there's a pool there, so we take the kids, people don't treat it as if it's just their own, because they don't own it. There's a different level of respect you have when you own something, when you had to put your grit in that, if that makes sense. Like, You know, David in the Bible says, I won't give God something that costs me nothing. When something costs you something and you have to fight for it, you have a different perspective and a different attitude towards it, and a humbleness about yourself. Okay. That, like, I put my blood, sweat, and tears in this. Okay. You're not just about to take this away from me, right? Like, there's a different level of governance that you put over the thing, because you have put your blood, sweat, and tears in it, because you own it. It's yours. It belongs to you. There's something different that happens psychologically in most people. But when you look at, like, for example, these apartment complexes, you don't own it. You're paying rent. You don't do anything with you. You don't keep up the property, except for the fact that you keep your inside of your house clean. Some, and hopefully most do. But, like, the upkeep and all that doesn't necessarily belong to you, because you don't own it, right? And sometimes people take a different approach, mentally, to things they don't own. And so this is what we're seeing in New York City, where we have all of these freebies, free this, free that, higher taxes on the ultra wealthy. It's not a moderate technocracy. I'm just going to leave that word alone. That's a hard left turn that will pressure businesses, landlords, and middle-class families already squeezed by cost. And I know some people are saying, like, the billionaires are going to leave New York City. I heard people say billionaires are going to leave. Some say they're going to stay, etc. Whatever the case might be. I think 50 Cent already left. So after he made a post that he would pay Zoran Mamdani, before Zoran Mamdani got elected, he made a post that he would pay him, I think, $200 and something thousand to basically pack up and leave New York City alone. But you have, these promises that he's making, which is all these freebies and stuff, and people are thinking, I feel like I understand the people if they're ignorant about how the stuff works. Like, I've been struggling, some freebies sound really good, right? And you have these other politicians who they're familiar with, who come with a similar game plan that they've seen before, and Zoran Mamdani presents something totally different. He's young, he's inexperienced, and I guess some people might say he represents me, like when we look at Donald Trump, right? And we're going to get to that soon. When we talk about the difference in the parties, I'll break that down a little bit more. But here's my read. Elections have consequences. New York voted for a government that grows, regulates, and redistributes aggressively. And Republicans shouldn't blame Sliwa for splitting the vote. Okay, this is what the New Yorkers voted for, and this is what they're going to suffer the consequences of that. If you think that your city is horrible right now, it may look good in the beginning, but if you've done any research on socialism, and and the funny thing is, when I think about the USSR and that the East and West split, it's kind of funny, because the people on the East, they were saying, wanted what the people in the West have, because they saw this entrepreneurship, they were doing way better, right? And so they started to get over the Berlin Wall to escape over to the West, because they wanted what the West had. They were tired of living underneath communism. And my thing is that these people didn't even have a taste of what it means to live in a capitalist society yet, and Americans have. So this is going to be a very interesting dynamic to see this play out in American society, when they really see what it's going to cost them to have all these freebies. Okay, we're going to get to our first ad sponsor before we go on. The next thing I'm going to share with you guys is the Virginia AG. We're going to talk about that one a little bit more as well. All these Democrat wins, and it doesn't really seem like it's going to benefit America in the long run. But before we get into that, our next sponsor is Your Skincare. This is a brand that I myself use. I have their stuff on my face now. I love this brand. It's one of my favorites. And I want to share this brand with you, because I think this brand could be of huge benefit to my ladies that love good skincare. Take a look. Brand is also one of my favorites, and this brand is called Your Skincare. This brand has tons of different options that you could choose from. They also have an A to Z set, and also individual products that you can use. I've actually been using this brand for a full year, and their stuff delivers, and I often get compliments on my skin. So I'm super excited to share this one with you guys today. There are two products that I'm going to share in this video out of their entire line. So the first one is going to be the Purifying Clay Mask, and this clay mask, ladies, is like no other clay mask I have ever tried. It is top notch. And the reason why is because it has bentonite clay, salicylic acid, and glycolic acid as the three main active ingredients. That bentonite clay is going to help to detoxify the face. You have salicylic acid that allows this clay mask to tackle acne in 15 minutes. You will see your acne breakout totally diminished and by the next morning completely gone just by using the clay mask. Also, this clay mask helps to tighten, firm, lift, and also brighten. And you will notice your skin brighten within your first use of using it. Yes, you heard that right. Usual clay mask, it takes about 3 weeks for you to see that change, but this is the very first clay mask I have ever used that you see the change in your first use of using it. It is that powerful. Also minimizes and cleans out the pores as well, and just leaves you with this beautifully radiant skin. Now, if you have dry skin, it's recommended to use this clay mask once a week, and if you have oily skin like myself, you can use it up to twice a week. I'm telling you guys, when I use this clay mask, I really feel like my skin is set for the next few months before needing to go in with it again. The next product from them is going to be their lip balm. I love this lip balm because it has hyaluronic acid, shea butter, jojoba seed oil as your three main active ingredients, notwithstanding that there are inactive ingredients also that are also all oils. There's peppermint oil, fruit oil in here, raspberry seed oil, etc. Castor oil is also in here as well. So you have great ingredients in this lip balm, and this lip balm is made to tackle fine lines and wrinkles on the lips and also seal in moisture and plump the lips. I love it. And it's not a lip plumper, but it does make the lips look very nicely plumped and extremely hydrated. It is like a fan favorite from this brand. I have to say that all the products from your skincare are all formulated for sensitive skin. They're all clean, it's recyclable, it's all made here in the USA, and you can also use any of their products when you are pregnant. I love this brand so much that I had to partner with them. And so I go live on TikTok and they allow me to do giveaways, and I'm live for at least 2 hours doing these giveaways with my followers, and also live stream exclusive discounts. And these are discounts you can't get if you're not shopping live with me. So ladies, if you do want to hop in and you want to grab some free stuff for yourself, I highly recommend you follow me on TikTok because that is where it is popping when it comes to all of these brands. Also, check that out. And remember that true beauty comes with living in the peace of God, purpose, and a life full of love and serving others. Again, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you subscribe, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Okay, so you can shop your skincare either on my Amazon storefront or you can go directly to their website. The actual link is there at the top. You're going to see it on your screen there. You can type that in and they'll give you some freebies. And you'll see that there on the screen as well. You got free shipping, you got some free refills, all that good stuff, guys. Their items are amazing and they're in the mid-range when it comes to their pricing, but I'm telling you guys, it's so worth it. Like, I love this brand so much. I use it, been using it now since 2023 when I first started working with them. And I took 3 weeks before I ever shared anything about their products to my audience. I just wanted to make sure that it was a good choice. They gave me a few months before before I needed to share anything or let them know that we wanted to work together because I wanted to see if the product actually worked. I just saw change in 3 weeks, which is why I felt comfortable enough to partner with them and to share it with my audience. So it was awesome. So definitely want to share that with you guys. They are made here, everything made here in the USA. They are here in the USA and they're an incredible brand. They're like have that Korean skincare essence, but I love the brand a lot. And so you can check out those freebies for yourselves. You can get a discount if you shop my Amazon storefront of 15% off by using the code there on the screen. Take advantage of it. Okay, before we move on to the Virginia AG, I do want to mention this because I was just reminded that California had raised their minimum wage to $20 an hour, and you're talking Mamdani wants to raise New York City's minimum wage to $30 citywide. And as a result of California, if we look at an example, because these two Democratic states doing this, you saw that they began losing lots of their fast food restaurants as a result of that raise. Okay, and this is what happens when you have government regulations like this. Instead of allowing the businesses to kind of do it, you're ruining your businesses, your small businesses, and you are losing them. You're losing businesses. And these are what employ people. Not everybody can be a business owner. Not everybody wants to. And so not only you're not going to have any workers, you're going to not have any businesses because you don't have anybody that can employ people. So, if you think things are, again, I'll say it, if you think things are bad right now in New York City, you're in for a rude awakening electing this guy. It's not simply just about, the fact that he didn't condemn that he stands with Hamas and all those other things, but it doesn't seem like he's going to serve well every single constituent. I'll tell you that. especially, his takes on the Jews and his stance with Hamas and all that. But also, you have this socialist idea that we're not used to, but you'll find out. I'll pray for you, New York City. I have been praying for you, but it is your choice. So, um, you will see, and then hopefully you swing red. It took Joe Biden for Donald Trump to be reelected. It'll take New York City. It'll take Zoran Mamdani for it to flip red. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, the Virginia AG. So this is interesting. First of all, let's talk about what the AG does, because I feel like I want to hit on this. I want to go into detail in it because this is important, considering what this man has, his rhetoric, and what has been brought up against him during the election period, and now that he is elected, which I think is super important that we are aware of. So let's talk job description. The Virginia Attorney General is he's a Commonwealth lawyer. The office handles civil representation for the state, its agency, boards, and officials, issues official legal opinions when asked by lawmakers or state officers, leads consumer protection enforcement, runs Medicaid fraud prosecutions, and handles specific criminal appeals and major crime support. It's not a lone wolf cop who runs the police. It's a legal office with real power over how the state sues, defends, enforces. So, putting someone with a documented history of violent rhetoric in that council of record seat matters. And this is what I mean. And let me break down what a fascist is as well. So in 2022, you had text messages that were released from a good friend of his, who's also a politician, Republican politician, that shared text messages of him saying that he wants another politician to be shot in the head twice, 2 shots to the head. He put this politician basically with Hitler, whatever the case might be, but this person is in the United States. He's definitely not Hitler. But he talks about, shooting this person's in the head and label this person's kid as little fascist. And now he's AG. Now you guys in Virginia elected him as AG. Let me just get to what a fascist is, and then we'll get more into that. Okay. So this ugly slur thrown at kids in these texts is just horrible. So a fascist is an authoritarian ideology that elevates the nation or a single leader over the individual, centralizes power, regiments, society, and the economy, and suppresses opposition violently if necessary. It also suppresses free speech. It's not someone I disagree with online. It's just words have meaning. So it's for him to have this political violent rhetoric in the midst of all the things that we have seen, when I say all the things that we've seen, all the political violence that we've seen in recent, throughout these recent years now, for him to be elected is crazy. It's wild that we would go to this lengths, okay, to do that. So to elect him. So, and despite his rhetoric. So it's disgusting, it's disheartening. And I think it speaks more of us, of corrupt souls, than it does anything else. Because if you would rather just have your political party, even if the man has said these types of things, like how can he even be trusted with you, even if you are a part of that party, or how could this guy even be trusted? Because it seems like if anyone goes against him, this is his tone, and now he's AG. So I mean, we saw the Melissa Hortman case, and her husband Mark, they were killed. We've seen Charlie Kirk is the most latest. Donald Trump's 3 assassination attempts. How can you elect somebody or put somebody in that position that is already talking about political violence in the midst of all of that? The thing is that it's important that our leaders don't carry this, don't have this rhetoric or this way of believing that they actually follow the Constitution. You don't really see that from the Democrat Party. I'm sorry, I was going to say it. the far, like Donald Trump says, radical left. You don't really see that from them. It's an embracing of political violence. And I can say that same thing on the far right. There are some people that embrace just political violence. Um, but it's just to have this person as an elected official, especially as an AG, I think is completely dangerous and reckless. Because how I don't understand how you could put any trust in this person if this is the approach that they take to human life. In midst of all that we've seen, we need leaders, because what happens is the way they operate at the leadership level, that is going to trickle down to the people that they lead. And instead of us seeing less political violence and actually operating as a constitutional republic where we are honoring the free speech, even if the rhetoric, even if what we say you don't like, because for example, Charlie Kirk spoke truth, and a lot of people didn't like it, didn't like hearing it, or some people say they didn't like his delivery. But it doesn't matter if you don't like his delivery. Okay, he never said he was going to kill anybody. He never, said any of those things of violence towards another individual, even people he did not agree with. He just spoke about his disagreement and why he disagreed with the lifestyle, etc. He never said he wanted to kill gays. He never said any of those things. But that is what happened to him, and that is what they spurred towards him. That type of hatred, and so this is who we have elected. When we see this constant fad in the Democrat Party, this is how they have to go to remain in power. I don't know. It's like they would rather remain in power than condemn these actions and not put somebody in power who actually carries these action and goes against our constitutional rights. Because this guy, to me, like, I don't understand how you think it would stop there. He did issue an apology, he did do that, but the thing is that there's no way to regulate how this man is going to do things, right? And then you also have a Democrat governor too that sits alongside him, and that to me was what I think makes it very uncertain and telling. I don't understand how you for me personally, I couldn't find a way to put any trust in somebody like that who already takes that type of tone and apologizes in public because it became public. Because he could have apologized when he was in those text messages. So that's why I said this is very telling. It's very uncertain. Yes, we can forgive this man for what he said, but repentance, when we talk about repentance, that has to come from your heart. That means a total change in direction, right? This is very hard to monitor that with him because, again, like I said, if he was sorry, he could have said that early on in the text messages with the person that he was messaging privately, but he apologized when it became public. So, and then he's calling kids little fascists, so that to me, that's, he's somebody that's supposed to protect and oversee even children, like child protective services and all that, so I don't understand how this guy could be. I'm just don't get it. How you could elect somebody who's this wild and crazy. But again, that's what I'm saying is that, this is the route that we've seen repeatedly from the Democrat Party is it goes more crazy and crazier. I don't see us. We haven't elected people as wild as Nick Fuentes, you know what I mean? And he's horrible. You know what I mean? Like those are the far left that I would call the far left people that are just wild. Okay. That should never ever have a seat because of their rhetoric. Nick Fuentes has said some really outlandish things. Never ever should he be elected for any leadership position, in my opinion, ever. Okay, because this guy is dangerous. He can just spit whatever things you want to say in his wherever he is, and online, but to be elected as an elected official with people to govern, states to govern, no, you don't deserve that type of platform. You don't deserve that. That should go to somebody who really wants to serve people, even when they disagree with them, even if they are your political rival. So this is the fact that we're getting to this place is just crazy, And so we have in New Jersey, Democrats selected Mikey Sherrill as governor. So we got New Jersey, we got Virginia. Both of these states have leaned left in presidential politics for years. It's kind of like why I'm not really surprised that those were the people that they elected. Virginia has gone blue for president every cycle since 2008. New Jersey hasn't gone red for president since 1988. So yes, Republicans underperformed this week, but the turf was blue going in. So I'm not surprised. I am surprised that the attorney general elected was Jay Jones. I'm very surprised at that. Okay, we're gonna take another ad break, and then I want to get to the portion that I'm super excited about in this podcast, which is we're gonna break down the different parties and the formulas because I really want us to see where we are as a nation. I don't know if any of these things are alarming you guys as much as it's alarming me as we break down Zohran Mamdani's election. We break down the AG Jay Jones. We break these things down. We talk about these issues because we're getting people elected that have an agenda that seems very unconstitutional like or not of the culture and the norms of our great nation. And I think this is one of the things that Charlie Kirk was hitting on is when you come into America, you should assimilate. And sorry, guys, I'm going to probably have to close my window again because I'm in front of a window. So my light's coming in right now. So excuse me, I'm going to close this window. The last time I did this, I didn't want to reach over, but that's better. That's much better. All right. Okay, so we have I guess I could have gone to an ad break, right? And done that. Anyways, okay, guys, this is real as it gets. Okay, so I am studying this because I want to see the direction our nation is going. I think Charlie Kirk did so much good when it came to this our nation and the laws and getting President Donald Trump elected. And I'm going to break down why. I know some people don't like him. I don't really care. Especially if you're a Christian, it makes no sense why you would not back somebody like Donald Trump and you would rather choose Kamala. Even when me and some of my friends, we have disagreements on the policies that Donald Trump implements. And I'll get back to this portion where, because no candidate is perfect, right? But I'll get back to this place where I asked them, you had a choice, Kamala or Donald Trump. Who did you vote for? And they'll say, of course, Donald Trump. But I don't agree with it. That's okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. Because her policies do not all resemble the Bible. Okay. The things that she went for. I already knew I wasn't going to vote for her from the onset. But then her bringing on, Megan Thee Stallion. Oh my God, how disgusting and degrading of a presidential candidate to do something like that. I do not want my daughter looking up to that. But anyways, that's not a woman I would want my daughter looking up to. I digress because what I want to get into is the formulas for today. So I've had to study this. I wanted to study this more. Because if you guys know my background, I came into politics paying attention closely, to politics really this year. And now I'm blessed to be state chair, South Carolina state chair in Turning Point USA Blexit, and just to learn more and grow in this and understand the American way of life and what we're actually fighting for. Now, I do know one thing. The word of God is definitely something I will hands down always fight for. But what does that mean in my nation? So that's kind of like how I wanted to get into this and understand it more. And I just felt like a call to this. So I want to understand more of the formulas of the Democrat Party versus the Republican Party and understand where are we headed right now? What was implemented? Why did Donald Trump get overwhelmingly elected? You have so many states that turn red when you look at the map. And why is Zohran Mamdani elected, right? So I did some research and I did a little bit of digging, and I want to present these to you guys to look at. And you can look it up and research it for yourself as well. People love to say that both parties are the same, but that's not true. I remember parties aren't all in our constitution, but they're extra constitutional organizations that evolved over time. So the two types of formulas I want to first look at is the old Democrat formula, pre-Trump, okay? And then we have the old Republican formula. So under the old Democrat formula, this is what I gathered. This is what I've learned. So we have, of course, welfare. That's always been a big thing of them, big welfare and regulatory state. Pro-NATO alliances, civil liberties rhetoric, moderate ethos of ensure basics, then let people make their own way. Okay, and we kind of saw this regulatory thing even under Bernie Sanders. If you remember back to Bernie Sanders, one of his policies out of the many of them, he definitely push more for that, and out of his mouth he said Democrat socialist that he was, even though the Democrat Party said in the beginning, like years ago, that they wouldn't lean to socialism, but they are doing it. Like I mentioned, they don't have any values. So, but at least we can look at some type of maybe a blueprint. So, this is the old Democrat formula. And so Bernie Sanders, one of the policies that he had was he wanted to make college free, right? He wanted to basically allow the federal government to pay a percentage of the tuition, and then the state pay the other percentage of that, not half, but just the other percentage. And there would have been a huge issue with that, of course, like with anything when it comes to federal and state, is that you can't regulate it at the state level, and the state can say no, right? I'm not about to pay for that. And then that would leave the student in this like limbo here, right? And so you have these subsidies, that we're talking about as well. And the same thing, similar thing to the Obamacare Act. When we're talking about a regulatory state, how these things just don't work long term. And this is the socialist part of policies here. We have just more regulation from the government. So old Republican formula. Let's talk about that. And I mean, you're going to see some of these things repeat, of course, nowadays, but let's just break it down. Old Republican formula: free trade and corporate alignment, skepticism of welfare, defend traditional morality, hawkish foreign policy, and too often meaning open-ended interventions. Okay, kind of like we see these dictatorships around the world as our political our rivals, right? And you see more so. I mean, I can't even say. I think you can judge for yourself, but the Republicans is more so building up the army, and all that, like getting our army together, and sometimes being more warlike. Whereas the Democrat I've seen in the past, they're more coup like. Okay, so instead of us sending our whole military, let's just do a coup, right? And I started learning about the coup, just to throw this in, when I was in Santiago, Chile for my study abroad. I loved different nations. I have a huge grace for people that are different from me, and I just love learning about different cultures. So I went to Santiago, Chile for about 5 months. I was in study abroad. I lived there, and I loved it. It was like a second home to me. I absolutely loved it. But one of the things when I was there, they're very, very political. They are very much into their the politics and understanding of that. And at that time, I was not, right. Like, I just wanted to be there for the culture, the language. I love, going to church and all that good stuff. And just going to church, I'm not saying that you can't be political, okay? But that was my mentality then. Whereas I don't really care about politics. I don't even understand this, right? So I wasn't into that then. But one thing when we were talking about the United States, because they have this great respect for the United States, even though they know the United States has faults, right? So when I was there, my Chilean, she wanted me to call her mama, but my Chilean mom, we were talking about America and the ties with North America, because they made me say North America because they're South. North America and South America, the partnership there. There was one time where the United States helped orchestrate a coup in Chile, and that was during Pinochet. And to hear them talk about this era, they get very upset because they lost so many people. And Pinochet ended up being like a dictator, and he would silence people that spoke out against him. And the United States, for their understanding and what they told me, and which I had to do research, found out it was true, is that they started this coup and had Pinochet in power. We did this coup so we had certain resources we wanted to gain from Chile. It really had not, and we left the people of Chile. This is the thing. We left the people of Chile under a regime that was killing a lot of people that didn't agree with the regime, and we didn't care. And when I first heard them tell me that, and they were angry telling me that, but I was like, no, that's not my nation. We don't do that. And they were like, yes, that's what happened. And they kind of looked at me like, how did you not know that that's what happened? Our nation, your nation did that. Because I was like, my nation is amazing. Like anywhere I go in the world, you guys talk about America and how awesome we are. Of course, we wouldn't start a coup. And that's when I started doing my research more. And I found out they were 100% correct. I was ashamed. Not the fact that I didn't know that we would do that or we did it in Chile, but I was ashamed that we would do that at all. I remember that feeling like, why? We are a constitutional republic. Why do we have to go into a nation like this undercover without letting the public know what we're doing and take over like that? Like, anyways, I remember, learning that there. But so we have this old Democrat formula, we have the old Republican formula, and I want to get to now what we're seeing right now with the Democrats and the Republicans, okay? So where many Democrats have lived from civil liberties, we have that. So if I were to sum up basically what we talked about with the old formula, civil liberties, welfare and internationalism, they are now going to censorship. And I say that because it actually is true. There are so many conservatives that have been censored under Democrat rule in this country. I have friends that have spoken out about things that are true that actually ended up coming to light. They're conservatives. They were silenced on every single platform except for X now, right? Donald Trump was silenced on every single platform. Okay. And that was during the time where he was going under this whole Russiagate thing, right? And the media was completely against him. And they didn't do due diligence. They just ate up whatever Obama gave them at the time to take, and they knew better. These are journalists. They know better. I'm pretty sure of it. They are not new to this trade. They just decided not to look into it because for whatever reason they didn't like President or Donald Trump at the time, and they didn't want him to become elected because why? He had the insights of a politician, right? Being at the level he was and being a billionaire and having all these friends in Capitol Hill as well as around the world. But he didn't have the manipulation, right? Because over him is what I'm saying. They couldn't control him. He has the money. He doesn't need their income or their money to, support. He could do it himself. And he was going to totally disrupt a system. And I think this is why Americans identified with him, because we saw him as an everyday person like us. Like he was in real estate first. He wasn't even a politician, right? But even though he had friends that are in politics and he was into that world, he understood a lot, right? Being a billionaire, because he always talked about tariffs and he's always talked about different nations and things like that, right? So he's always been on the money on those things. But I think a lot of people could identify, and we were like, we want the deep state to be dismantled. It shouldn't be a deep state in America, right? This is a constitutional republic. Again, I say it. And so censorship was one of the things we see now. And so we've moved to, in the Democrat Party, the censorship, socialism, and internationalism. If I were to sum up what I'm seeing right now, you see it in big tech pressure dynamics and in policy programs like New York City's new agenda, rent freezes, $30 minimum wage, universal services funded by higher taxes on a shrinking base, a layer on national progressive planks from the Bernie era, free public college via federal state matching and a Wall Street transaction tax, and Medicare for all financed by across the board payroll and income surcharges, and you get a much heavier state. That's what we're seeing from the Democrats right now. Under Trump right now, this is the shift that I think the Republican Party made, because it made a huge shift. Trump is not the typical Republican, in my opinion, because there are certain things that he changed, okay, that we saw like from the old formula to this new formula. Like, again, like I said, some things repeat, but then some things are not the same. So under this new Republican formula, what we're seeing is free speech, right, over speech policing. We see trade protection where it benefits American workers, tariffs, reciprocity instead of reflexive free trade. We see skepticism of foreign adventurism. Peace through strength is the motto that Donald Trump is using. So we don't have these endless wars. Now, like I mentioned before, you may even call the Republican Party a wartime type party as well, because we didn't have a problem going to war, right? But Under Trump, this is a different approach, right? We're not seeing coups. Pray to God that we don't ever see one under him. He's really trying to be as transparent as he can. From what I've seen, this man is super transparent. Like, you have him having reporters sit in his entire cabinet meetings. We've never seen that. We saw with Obama that reporters would come in during the cabinet meetings for a short time, but now Trump is allowing them to sit in, the long term. He's inviting them on Air Force One. He's taking them everywhere. Okay, even the fake news is going with him. Of course, they are not in every single aspect of what the president's doing, but they are more so than not. Okay, so we see a peace through strength type of approach. We stop subsidizing other countries while our border is broken and families are struggling. We close that border, right? And I love the recent meeting that Trump had with the prime minister. I'm just getting a story that's breaking as well right now. So, anyways, I'll say this first. So there was a recent meeting that Donald Trump had, bilateral meeting he had with the prime minister. I think it was Uzbekistan. No, I'm sorry. The recent meeting was with Hungary. And the funny thing is, I'm gonna say this too, with the meeting with Hungary, both, you see, Hungary said, the prime minister of Hungary said this, Zelensky said this, Putin said it, many some other leaders have said that if Donald Trump were president, this war would have never happened. The war with Russia and Ukraine, that's what they all keep saying that. Okay, it's not just out of Donald Trump's mouth. You have leaders around the world that's quoting that.
Hold on.
In that bilateral meeting with Hungary, that Hungary was receiving a like $1 million a day fine because they refused to have their borders wide open like every other European country. And the leader of Hungary said the reason, as a result of them closing the borders or just having a tighter vetting system, where just not anybody can come into their country, like, you have to be properly vetted, right? Their crime is the lowest, one of the lowest in Europe, they said, because they don't have that type of same policy that other countries do. And they'll take that fine if it means protecting their citizens. Now, I think from just that right there, I don't really know all the policies from this leader of Hungary, but he said that they are a Christian nation, which I was like, that's awesome. But he said that to me, what I'm seeing is that if this man can take that cost of being fined to protect his citizens, I think that says a lot about his character and his leadership, right? That you would say, hey, even if I got to pay this fine to protect my country and my citizens, I want to do it. Even if I know it's unfair that you're doing this to me, I'm still going to do it, right? And sad that he has to go through that. And I think Donald Trump mentioned that, maybe they can do something together to stop that from happening, but there's no telling. We don't really know if Trump can, but and can say he gets along with the European leaders when you see the NATO's paying now 5%, right? But yeah, so we're closing the borders so that we can have protection, so that we can have a society like Charlie Kirk was saying. Like, if you have these open borders, nobody's assimilating in America. There's no culture. There's nothing basically sacred in our nation, because you have all of these, the different people coming in, which I mentioned. I love the different people coming in. I don't think that's a problem. It's the fact that when you don't have this assimilation and you have socialism and all this stuff right here starting to erupt now, right? And and under Biden we had this open border policy, and it's biblical to guard your nation, to have borders secured. It is 100% biblical, and you can go from the Old to the New Testament and see this. So you have in the Old Testament where even Israel, when they were in the wilderness and they wanted to go into another nation's land, they asked permission. And when that person said no, they walked around, right? You have Joseph in the Bible, who was second in command. And even him, he asked the Pharaoh if it was okay for his brethren or brothers and family to live in Goshen. And what did the Pharaoh do? He asked them what their trade was. What are they going to do in Goshen? And he told them that they're farmers. They should be in Goshen, etc. He asked permission. He didn't just let them in, right? And let them stay there. And then they had permission. I have a breaking story right now about sorry guys, I'm going to digress right now because I have a big breaking story that just came on my desk. Shots are fired at ICE agents in Chicago. This story just broke. Wow. Okay. There's a story breaking down right now. If I can get that, is there an article or something with that? Can I get that article or tell me which? Let me see. Yeah, let me know if we have an article for that. It's an unknown male in a black Jeep opened fire and he drove off. Okay. This is another issue, guys. This defiance of the law. These ICE agents, they have warrants to do what they're doing. Okay. It's not like they're going around just willy nilly, doing something that they don't have actual, you know, authority to do. Um, and you can look at their numbers. Thank you so much for this article. I'm getting an article in now, guys. And I'm not saying that ICE is going to be perfect. I'm not saying that, and I'm not defending that. But I am saying is that the constant attack we've had on these ICE agents that are just doing their job and they actually have the authority, the governmental authority. They got warrants from the judges to pick certain people up that are illegal, that are doing not just being illegal here. Even if you're illegal, you did commit a crime, but people that are actually murderers and doing things like still committing these types of crimes of smuggling and trafficking and all that, they have warrants to do this, and you're obstructing justice by being in the way of them doing it. I'm sorry if you came here. Unfortunately, the truth is, if you came here legally, I'm sorry, you're underneath that. You're breaking the law. You broke the law. Okay, that's never been anything that's changed. I know Biden had an open border policy, but if you don't have your documents and your papers, the thing, those types of policies can change with different governments. And the rule is you should be here with the paperwork to identify yourself. Okay, so I'm seeing this new article. It says shots were fired at immigration and customs enforcement agents on Saturday in Chicago, where the Trump administration has been cracking down on crime and illegal immigration, according to the Department of Homeland Security. So we have a breaking story here. Yep, guy in a black or male. We don't know if he's black or white or not, but male driving a black Jeep fired shots at agents and fled the scene. An unknown number of agitators also threw a paint can and bricks at Border Patrol vehicles. Chicago Police Department was called for assistance and cleared the scene. The shooter and vehicle remain at large, and this is a dynamic situation. Okay, I will. Um, I'll leave it there. Yeah. So this is another issue within our nation, and this is something else that Zoran Mamdani ran with too on his platform was more so defunding the police and not in certain areas. Or having less police enforcement when he walks around with security. It's just so wild that you can't put two and two together. Some people can't. Like, it's just wild. Like, this man is not actually living what he's talking about. So it's like, so how can he be a good leader for you guys? I don't know, but I guess you'll find out the hard way. Okay, so let me get back to the formula. We talked about countries, our borders being secured. We talked about the families struggling, border security and cultural stability over chaos. Um, and Republicans also are avoiding socialism. We keep room for entrepreneurship and family level prosperity, right? Something we can pass on to generations. That's what we're about, right? So we want limited government, and government should come in where needed. The basic necessities being covered, but allowing people to become entrepreneurship, to make this country better, be innovative, bring something new into society that makes it better. Those types of things, right? We went from a caricature of theocratic, corporate, warlike to a movement that's pro speech, pro worker, and anti forever wars. Is it perfect? No. Is it a healthier direction for regular Americans? I think yes. That's what we're seeing from the Republican Party. So I hope my formula helped break things down for you guys, because this is what I've been dwelling on for the last few days. How did we get here on the Democrat Party side, and how do we get here on the Republican side? I wanted to look at both, because right now who we have leading the Republican Party is Donald Trump, and he's not a far left right person. right? Like we see with AOC and Chuck Schumer. And Zoran Mondani is, I guess he might be the, person they're propping up right now to follow, because he's heading socialism and he's not apologizing for it. He is direct about it. And that was one thing we admired about Trump, is like this is what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it, and he didn't sugarcoat it for us. And we appreciated that honesty. We knew exactly what we were going to get, right? And we got it. So the bottom line, the left is choosing bigger government and harsher speech controls. And you see this even with AOC. They're like you can speak, but don't say anything against the LGBTQ. Don't say anything against, but you guys can censor us on all platforms. Because I even experienced this on my platforms, where I'll say something in regards to an issue, and it's suppressed. Not so right now, not so much right now, but I've seen this before. Before I ever got into this area of politics and speaking out about stuff on this side of things, I've seen it happen in my own content. Okay. Like I mentioned, I got close friends who are private investigators who have been deplatformed on all platforms. And when she tries to, put her information in again to sign up on these platforms, they don't even let her do it. It's like she's blocked. So you've seen that, right? We've seen this with many conservatives. And that's basically controlling speech. Okay? That is I just had this random thought, but I'm not going to share it because it takes us off course. But that is not a part of our constitutional republic. It's taking us from that. And here's the thing, like, even though the Democrats, they'll say that, Trump is a dictator and all that he's going against, we don't see that with Trump. Okay, we're still in a government shutdown. Why? Because Trump's not a dictator. Okay, there's so many things that Trump has tried to implement, like every other president, and have judges come up against him more so than any other president, right? And it's the fact that it's not only the fact of the, like I mentioned, I don't think it's just the policy, because he ran on this, and this was overwhelmingly 75 million Americans, 76 million Americans elected him for. But it's the fact that they're losing power. It's the fact that Trump had to, and they created this, okay? I feel like they created this Trump because they silenced him on all platforms. Dude created his own platform. As I said, they couldn't control him. That's why I keep saying that. They can't control this man. They tried to silence him on all platforms so he wouldn't have a voice, especially during his trial. So he could not speak up for himself, and nobody was speaking the truth for him. Dude started his own social platform. Then Elon Musk takes over X, right? And he learned from his mistakes. Running with the Obama administration, Coonies, those people, to now having his own administration that he feels more confident in, and they're running. I feel like they're a more trusted administration than we've seen in recent years. Of course, I hear people say you can't trust federal government. I get it. Okay. It's like when I was a part of the HOA, people say, oh, the HOA is a farce, so you can't trust the HOA. But when you actually serve there and you see what it's actually about and all the stuff you had to put into play, and the income that's coming in and where that money's going, and the limitations you have because of state or city regulations, when you start seeing the truth, you don't see it like that no more. Okay. When you actually work in that position, you start seeing it differently from the people that just have to look through a window. And that's kind of like what I feel like is happening at the government level, to be honest. You've never been in that position, so you really don't know the whole ins and out of it to say that, to be like, oh, we shouldn't trust them. And I get the government has definitely failed us before when you look at these cases of Martin Luther King Jr. and all that stuff like that, because we don't have the full answer, right? But I do feel more confident in the Trump administration than I've had in any other administration. I can say that. They're not perfect. No, I'm not saying that they are, but I feel like I have more confidence in them than I have in any other. Okay. So as we wrap up today, guys, what I want us to do is make sure that we are constantly praying for our country. Okay. And that we know the Constitution enough to recognize when it's being violated. I think that's important. And this is what Charlie constantly did on these college campuses and when he was speaking and debating, because he'd have to throw in these things about the Constitution. And I felt like that taught people, about the Constitution. It gave you a perspective. He gave you knowledge, and you couldn't debate. This dude was wise. He did his due diligence. Okay. He read your book on the left and he read the other book on the right, and he formed in that his own opinion based on the Bible, right? In the which is I would say in the middle, okay, our middle ground, our ground that we stand on, because this dude knew your argument before you said it, and he did his due diligence, like a great debater, like somebody who loved this country and wanted to show the idiocracies of what you believed and what you thought. I think, and that's very plausible. Okay, and people got mad that they couldn't stand up against that. Like Stephen in the Bible, dude was so wise. It's like, let's just get angry and kill him. That's all you can do. Anyways, let's pray for our nation and honor the Constitution. And I believe that at this time, the Republicans, we are, at least under Donald Trump, um, we are more honoring of the Constitution than not. We are more following of that than not. Um, and it's funny because Democrats say that they honor the Constitution, but you constantly see a breaking of it. Okay, like why are we being censored on platforms? Why is the media being paid to give an unfavorable light for another party and not tell the truth? Like why? You know what I mean? Like all these different things. I'm gonna digress there. But let's pray for our country, guys. Let's pray for our leaders and keep our eyes open for, just keep our eyes open on everything that's taking place and stay engaged. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me today. I hope you found this time with me informative, gave you something to chew on, to think about, to look into as well. And definitely pray for our ICE agents too. They are taking it hard and they're serving this country and they're continuing to do it. Okay, they're continuing to put their lives on the line because I believe they believe in that and what their stance is with the job they're doing. So yeah, let's stay in prayer and stay engaged. Thank you guys for being with me, and I will see you next Saturday, 2 3 p.m. ET. Until then, have a great